welcome, folks, to this edition of the Hagmann Report, July 5th, 2017. Yes, the day after a major federal holiday, American Independence Day. How many people really know what it's about? Just ask Mark Dice. Of course, he asked the people in Santa Monica or thereabouts, and those people say, well, yeah, it's...
he did a Man on the Street interview?
Yeah, several.
See it.
It's sad. It's sad, but our audience is the smartest audience in the world. We have with us Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. Speaking of smart audiences, people need to understand what's taking place with respect to Earth changes. And you've heard this statement. Things are not always as they appear. Well, Steve Quayle is here to tell us exactly that. Things are not always as they appear, whether it's Yellowstone or other issues. You may think you know what's going on. You may look at data points and say, oh, yeah, I know, but you really don't. So take it from someone who does know, and that's Steve Quayle. And, Steve, before I turn you loose, I just got to tell you, do you mind if we talk in the morning off air?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right, brother. I haven't talked to you in a while, so I want to get that in there. So after you have your first cup of tea or whatever, give me a call. All right. Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. Welcome to the program, sir.
Well, thank you, Doug. And first of all, I want to share with people that let's deal with Yellowstone, and then don't let me get off without talking about the stories I'm posting on South America. I'm putting them into clue form on a reason, okay? The reason is you've heard you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. What I'm trying to do is make people think so they can arrive at the destination where they need to drink in the truth of God's Word and put it into perspective of Jesus's words that said, if he didn't shorten the days, there'd be no flesh left alive. The stuff that we're talking about, in Yellowstone Park is earth-shattering but earth-shaking. But the stuff that went on that we were privy to in South America on the True Legends Conference, and given probably the world's most inside tour by the world's most famous author, archaeologist, adventurer, Anselm P. Rambla, was unequaled in the history of the world, Doug. So if you get emails and comments, what's Quayle doing? Has he lost it? No, I haven't lost it. I know perfectly well what I'm doing.
I love it.
I draw everyone's attention to, and believe it or not, it's my attempt to obviously follow in the footsteps of Jesus by not riddling anybody anything, but basically trying to give them a realm of thinking that I believe cognitive dissonance has taken from the majority of your listeners. So, and I encounter it every day. I'm sure you do too. But let's make sure when we come back from the break, whenever we take it, that you get me into that. But I want to deal with Yellowstone Park first, okay?
Sure.
Because it is a phenomenon that appears every summer about this time as the earthquakes in Yellowstone National Park increase, pretty much starting in May, June. The average amount of quakes in Yellowstone is 1,000 to 3,000 a year. We just had the 4.8, which is one of the largest quakes in the last 34 years. The infamous Alaskan quake that made triggered a 7.3 earthquake, basically creating Quake Lake, in which people in a campsite lost their lives. That was generated in Alaska. So what is critical that people understand is this: I don't pretend to have all of the answers. I certainly don't know the degree of advanced physics that Kaku and some of the others are dealing in. But I can tell you this: I've got a history with Yellowstone that goes back 44 years. I also have been in a position to make friends with some of the most, I would say this, cutting-edge, avant-garde thinkers in the world concerning Yellowstone. It's 30 minutes from my house in a helicopter, and I have a friend that owns a helicopter service in Bozeman, so basically he'll take me there any time that we can fly. Obviously, it doesn't have instruments, so we can't fly at night. But should something happen, I have a commitment to the people. It isn't my pet project, Doug, that Yellowstone's not going to blow. You can bet your life if something like magma broke through in the Norris Basin, and Norris is the area in Yellowstone National Park, it's the geyser basin in which the magma is closest to the surface. You can bet your bottom dollar I would be the first to blow the whistle, okay? Because I'm tired of having to deal with people that tell me that I'm arrogant, that I'm this, that, the other thing. I don't think anybody has, outside of the park officials and their records, taken more photographs of Yellowstone Park. Very few people have been there for 44 years. Years ago, I was one of the guys, the first, if you will, commercial photographers to integrate color infrared photography. You'd see it from NASA and some of the other scientific things where green looks red, and they still use it to find ancient civilizations. But the point is that I make it how do I say this? I'm in Peru, Doug, and I get, I was able to get emails there, and I'm getting the Yellowstone's going to blow, you hypocrite, blah, blah, blah stuff. And it so infuriated me that I got on the phone, okay, and I said to my certain friend, I said, hi, it's me. And he said, I thought you were in Peru. I said, I am, but evidently rear ends have a way of following me to Peru. And I'm not talking about the ones that are sitting on airplanes, or mine. So the thing is that if you sense a little, if you will, not hostility, but almost a bewilderment at how people can recycle old news, put a new date on it, put it on YouTube, and everybody panics. Now, let me share this. The estimates of the amount of geyser features, fumaroles, vents in Yellowstone is estimated at least half the world, if not 70% of the world's geyser vents and volcanic springs, pools, fumaroles, mud pots. They're in Yellowstone Park, which from my position is less than 50 air miles away from me. The area of Yellowstone, it's, basically 44 square miles. I just spent 2 weeks ago, I'm saying this to put into perspective the lengths I'll go to, Doug, to basically try and show people that this is hype. It has nothing to do, it's an intentional, in my opinion, psyop. It's designed to keep people focused in Yellowstone. Even the BBC years ago, during the days of the Banda Aceh quake, and Stan Deo and I were on, Stan was drawing everyone's attention to the fact that, look, something's happening in Indonesia based on White Island and based on sea surface temperature anomalies. So the guy that called the Banda Aceh earthquake was Stan Deo, but during that time, he did a marvelous job. So during that time, the BBC, British Broadcasting Company, I call them the barf busting, I won't use the C word, but anyway, the idea is that they wanted to basically take away from the immediacy, in my opinion, of Indonesia. Most people were caught off guard, including the big networks, but not Stan. And I don't even remember if that was on your show that we talked about that. When did you start your own radio broadcast? It may have been on mine, but anyway, it was on your radio show.
It was on yours.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. If it weren't for you and Hawk, I wouldn't know what year I said what. And I mean that as a compliment. The idea that Yellowstone is going to blow at any minute is based on, right now, recycled information that's false. For instance, the presence of helium-4, helium-3. Helium-3 is what the Chinese are talking about mining on the moon. There are 9 isotopes of helium, 9. So when somebody says, there's record amounts of helium, with the earth changes taking place, that's absolutely true. But the point being is it doesn't indicate a supervolcano is going to erupt. Now, I posted on my website from an insider, which you know, and this guy's the real McCoy, badge-carrying, I can't say what I want to say, but he's capable of bashing certain appendages on people that think they have titanium ones, if he has to. But the point being is that they've been briefed on the immediacy of the coming quake on the West Coast, okay? And for anybody that hasn't seen that alert, I would encourage you to go to my website, stevequayle.com. Now, why is a disinformation campaign so focused on Yellowstone? Well, Doug, I've undertaken, and this is behind the scenes, I don't even think you know this, I've undertaken the most extensive aerial photography film that's ever been done in Yellowstone Park, okay? And we're talking something that's 44 miles, so when you're back and forth with a shot-over camera, those of you who are in the world of cinematography and you're using a red camera with the, $40,000 Canon lens, the whole thing is worth $500,000. This isn't something I'm taking, how do I say this, just for the kicks to go spend money, that I have to borrow from the bank to do what I'm doing.
That's Steve, that's what I saw, right? I saw that assembly on the...
Yes.
Okay.
So putting this into perspective, I put my money, and I do put my 44 years of photography on the line, okay? If I went to my photo, just the ones I have on my computer, not talking, the stuff that's in files of Kodachrome 2564 and infrared Ektachrome, I've got, I think, 40,000, 44,000, somewhere around that photos, okay? And it's not all Yellowstone, of course, but the point is, I'd say this, half of it is. And so the idea that I somehow am cocky and I'm responding to some guy who basically, he says, you're not the only one that knows about Yellowstone. I didn't say I was, but I'm the only one that's undertaken the massive project I'm undertaking. My goal, Doug, is to make it available to the world so they'll know everything there is to know about Yellowstone up until the moment an eruption happens. Now, let me say this. Anybody that understands bioengineering and the whole genetic engineering, CRISPR technology knows that if it weren't for a specific thermophile bacteria in Yellowstone's hot pool, the mushroom pool, that you wouldn't have the advances being made so quickly in the world of genetic engineering. Everybody is using that new, polymerase chain reaction, bacterium, and it's famous. It's famous worldwide, and most people don't even know the history. The value of Yellowstone, just in exobiotic interplanetary research, is in the trillions of dollars. That one single thermophile bacteria has already yielded billions of dollars, and the people that have patented, they've been fighting in court, et cetera, and the National Park Service, rightly so, has a royalty agreement, and it should, because Yellowstone is, in my opinion, the first wonder of the world. Now, I'm biased, okay? So the project I've undertaken is both above surface, in the air, and underwater. Now, I don't need to fund the underwater research because Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution is already doing a multi-year study of the thermal vent that lies in Yellowstone Lake, okay? The thermal temperature, they put probes down in the bottom of the lake, and, this isn't a super deep lake. The deepest point is like 400 feet, and they're testing the temperature. I fly over that multiple times, Yellowstone Lake, in order to see if there's any ice melt whatsoever. The only ice melt you ever have is down around West Thumb and some of the other geyser basins that flow into the lake, but it's, less than probably 100 feet, maybe 200 feet max. But where the vent is and where the, quote, super volcano would erupt from, it's as quiet as a mouse. I personally was in Yellowstone Park a number of years ago when they had 800 microtremors in one day. I came back and said, look, it's not a big deal. I couldn't feel them. And to put this into perspective, it's the most monitored geologic area in the world. I want to say that again. Yellowstone is the most monitored geologic area. So for those that think, Russia, China will send an atom bomb or a nuclear missile or pre-plant nuclear weapons there, you're crazy. The reason you're crazy is because the value of it so surpasses, it's relatively few people, especially in the winter, and so there's no strategic value to it other than this. It is the quintessential spoil of war. So, the idea that, and I've seen this on the internet, that the Russians are getting ready to blow it up, that China's getting ready to blow it up. China is going to blow up their own property. That's like dropping a bomb in Beijing, okay? Because in essence, most people, and Snopes says it's not true, there's massive amounts of information that when Hillary Clinton gave, in essence, the rights to the national parks as collateral rights to the Chinese for buying all our debt. Do you remember that story, Doug?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
So here's what I'm saying. Because of all the people that I know, and because of the graciousness, I believe, of the living God, there's real issues to focus on. But Yellowstone is so unique that I would say right now I'm about a third of the way through the production of the series that is going to be put out. And for the record, National Geographic's never done it. The History Channel's never done it. They're interested in bison, wolves, elk. They're interested in everything like that, the wildlife, the history. And then those who are interested in Yellowstone's going to blow at any minute, seem to be the Defense Department and the Department of Propaganda. Now, I want to make it clear. I believe that the whole focus on Yellowstone National Park is based on, if you will, watching the magician's emblem while the right hand or left hand that isn't making the, not emblem, but the, what's that deal hypnotists use? The little pendulum, the swinging pendulum. Yeah. Everybody's eyes are on Yellowstone. The real story is what's happening up and down the West Coast. The real story, what's happening in Indonesia. The real story is what's happening on the Ring of Fire. And so the thing that I'm trying to tell everyone is this. Very soon, by the grace of God, as you know, and trust me, persuading banks that there's a huge interest in Yellowstone is an understatement. But anyway, fortunately, I got some pretty cool bankers and stuff, and obviously, I got to pay them back. So when we're out filming for 2 days and when I say this, it's not we filmed every square inch of the park. That's not true. We've filmed every active geothermal known area. We flew the back areas, and we're using stabilized cameras. So many times we're flying at 100-plus knots, okay? And we're not hovering, and we have to, be at the specific levels that are governed by the park's rules, and with these cameras, Doug, they're so stable and so sharp. The sensors are so sophisticated and the lenses are so amazing that you can literally spot, and we did, got some great pictures of goats, mountain sheep, elk, and you're able from multiple thousands of feet to see the hair on their back, And the idea is that it's such a sophisticated system that basically the military and their defense intelligence satellites and stuff, they got us beat. But what I'm saying is with that level of sophistication and that coverage, and the guy that was running the camera, I was the DP, the director of photography, but the camera operator is one of the most famous guys in the world who just happens to live in Bozeman. Now, how cool is God, okay?
Absolutely.
He's one of the...
Yeah, yep. And Steve, I don't mean to interrupt you. We've been getting a whole bunch of questions in advance of tonight. Joe, real quick, 800 volcanoes or something, or 800 eruptions.
There was a few headlines last week in the news that said in a period of 2 weeks, Yellowstone saw 878 earthquakes. In a period of 2
Tremors,
weeks.
Whatever.
Now, the article also says that it's not an indicator of any type of potential eruption, but they say that the average is between 1,000 and 2,000 earthquakes a year. And then to have almost 1,000 in 2 weeks, they said it was pretty high.
Yeah, is that indicative of anything, Steve?
Well, like I said, Doug, a couple of years ago, they had 800 in one day, and I was there that day, So these are micro tremors. So Here's the thing. When you've got magma moving, you've got electrical fields being generated, and that obviously is going to indicate on the different how do I say this? That's not only irrelevant. Here's the thing. Susan Duclos did a great article for me. And, people always give me crap about All News Pipeline, okay? I got to tell you something. In their defense, that they're some of the best research articles out there, and they don't just rehash headlines. They go to it. So I'm saying this. I put out an article, and I told Susan I would repost it because it's that critical. There are things that you would look for before any super volcano were even to begin to go on the radar. Number one, magma. which is the closest to the surface in Yellowstone Park, is the Norris Geyser Basin. Several years ago, they closed some of the walkways, that literally wooden walkways that run they walk you around these geothermal features to keep you from obviously getting hurt. And they closed part of that. They also closed, it was either last year or the year before that, the Mammoth Hot Springs walk up in what's called the Upper Geyser Walk. Now, I go there just about every time I hit Yellowstone because it's faster for me to go from Bozeman through Livingston down to the Gardner entrance than it is to go to the West Yellowstone and fight all the traffic. By the way, guess who's represented by the millions now in Yellowstone as tourists? Chinese.
They're all over the place. I know in Canada, Toronto, and so many other places here, like Vegas. I've seen reports too. They're just about every big city.
But the fascinating thing is, Joe, is that some of them made it known, and they've said it outright. We own this now. So, when the average Chinese citizen knows that, maybe the American citizens had better wake up. By the way, it's also most people need to know this, but it's also a United Nations preserve, And
yeah.
What's fascinating? Yeah. Gee. Oh, interesting. New World Order. So here's the thing. Yeah, I'm sarcastic. I'm really sarcastic, okay? And the reason I'm trying to make people understand this tonight, and we'll go on to the other subject at the first break, and I'll answer any questions. I mean, we'll stick with this as much as we, people have questions. But look, they're the largest assemblage of incredibly wealthy people in the world have homes at what's called the Yellowstone Club. And Stephen Sanford did a great job in researching that, okay? So right now, when you've got the captains, I mean, it's Gates, it's Eric Schmidt, it's the head of Goldman Sachs, it's a who's who in the world, okay? These aren't like second-tier millionaires. These are first-tier billionaires / trillionaires. And somebody says, there are no such thing as trillionaires. You only know the financial information that's put out there. You don't know what really exists. There are a lot of people breaking ranks, Doug, from all over the world that listen to your show. And God bless everyone outside the United States who's listening to Hagmann and Hagmann tonight. Because, again, there are areas of volcanic unrest. There are areas, if you're watching all the earthquakes in California, that's troubling. If you understand what's going on with the underwater, what are called seamount volcanoes, up off of the Oregon-Washington coast, those are troubling. What's going on Balagsoff Island in the Aleutians, those are troubling. What's coming alive in Costa Rica, Turrialba, and I might probably pronounce that wrong, but everything that's coming alive is coming alive on the Ring of Fire. Now, will there be harmonic tremors in Alaska that will initiate a sympathetic response in Montana? Absolutely. The great quake that happened, that created the Hebgen Lake Dam and the Quake Lake, that happened because of the Alaskan 7.3 earthquake. But what is critical is that the stories of helium leaking are 4 years old. The stories of Kaku, Michio Kaku saying it could go off supervolcano. Yeah, but right now people better be worried about ICBMs because North Korea just achieved it, and because they launched it vertically and didn't launch it in a horizontal arc, this is information just came in to me moments ago, they were able to prevent a massive counterattack. In other words, Doug, they sent it in a vertical ascent versus an arc like a launch for an ICBM.
Right.
And whoever told them to do that is very, very smart. And my guess is they're having a lot of help, because when you can take a country like that and they can produce MIRVed warheads, which are independently targetable reentry vehicles, the RV, in essence, they've achieved what they've been warning about. It's just the dumbasses, and I'm sorry, it's a biblical term, the dumbasses in the mainstream press that have nothing to do but lie to the American people and keep the truth and the nature of this all hidden, don't get it. So, you're hearing that for the first time, and I got to tell you something. I catch a lot of flack from linking to Hal Turner, and Hal has, I'll make this statement, I know he's got a past, but I also know that he's still got contacts. And if he's got a good story, I'm going to say this publicly, I'm going to link to it. If I can verify it, and he did a marvelous job breaking that story late last night or the night before. And, again, listen to the message, people. Look at the evidence. Forget if you hate Steve Quayle. Forget if you hate Doug Hagmann.
There
you love us, thank you. But, listen to the message. So, Doug, anyway, if you want to ask questions about Yellowstone, I want to answer the questions about Yellowstone because I would say this. Again, I'm in an unusual geographic position to answer them. I'm in a historic relationship with a lot of people that know what's going on there on a moment's notice. That's nothing. Only God, and I want to say this, if God told me to warn his people, and if I'd be faithful, here's my, if you will, prime directive, and take it up with him if you're mad. Take it up with him if you hate my guts. But at least listen to the information, okay?
That's
and I can tell you
right.
this, the carnal man in me just starts wanting to lash out, okay? And so I'm saying, God, tone me down, help me to get the information out, but please help your people to awake because it's so late in the game. So I'll take any questions you want.
Yeah, and Steve, we can do that after the top of the hour. We got about 60 seconds at the top of the hour. But yes, and folks, I just want to say this before I kick it over to Joe. I've seen the mechanism, the camera that Steve was talking about, and let me tell you something. He's not lying. He's not overstating it. Man, I'll tell you what. It's military grade, in my view, anyway. NSA kind of stuff. Steve Quayle does know what he's talking about. Joe, I'm going to kick over to you to take us out for the network break.
Yeah, and folks, if you do have a question for Steve, we'll take a few email questions. So send your email questions to studio@hagmanandhagman.com, and we'll throw as many of those in there as we can. SteveQuayle.com is the website. Steve is our guest. He's going to be with us through the next hour, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we've been talking about Yellowstone and the stories that people are reporting that there is an increased possibility of an eruption of the Yellowstone volcano. And Steve, we already have a number of email questions, so anytime you want me to ask you one or we go through them, just let me know.
Okay, well, we'll do it, but I want to explain something that happened, Doug, because it's due to, the reach of the Hagmann and Hagmann report. We've now opened up Branson for our worldwide request to live streaming. Obviously, they got to pay to register, but they can listen to it any time of the day, any time of the night. It will be recorded and streamed in real time. We're about 85% full now, and we only have 3,000 seats. But we've gotten so many requests, and obviously there would be DVDs available, but you can go on my website, stevequayle.com, and right in the middle, right over the hot headlines, will be a link that'll take you to register. And what was interesting, when we went to Peru and we took our conference attendees, we had, I think, 4 different countries represented. I know for a fact we did, from Egypt, Great Britain, Australia, South Africa, and Russia. So the thing that was fascinating is that I saw the wisdom of God, because each one of those people, and I won't name names, but I mean, and I would never do that, but each one of those people are taking something back, and these aren't the, quote unquote, these are people that have influence. Some of the names, you can basically go on the internet and, do a search on them, but I won't even say anything about that. But what was interesting to me, the Bible says, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. And we watched the cover-up in real time in Cusco at the Coricancha, the convent of Santo Domingo, when we were told that the former prior, Father Gamarra, was not there. And we got into some trouble because Anselm wanted to show us the area where they had found the stairway leading down into the Shinkana, the underground tunnel system, which is you're going to hear a lot about. You're going to hear some of the biggest revelations, and I believe this is not an empty statement. You're you're going to see, and those of you that are going to stream it or get it on video or be there in person, you're going to have some of the biggest revelations in the history of the world that have ever been given. That's not an empty promise. It's not basically, bait and switch. It's going to be so mind-blowing because, listen, I've been at this a long time, Doug. Maybe some people say too long, but I'm telling you point blank, I have my mind blown over and over and over, and I'm grateful that I got to go. But even now, I want to say this one more time, then we'll go to the questions on Yellowstone. Please, if you cannot make Branson in person, please live stream it and get in line to live stream it, meaning you just sign up, and then obviously when it goes live, you get your code and you can go on and watch it, listen to it in real time. The production is going to be A-plus quality. We're in one of the finest venues in the United States for acoustics and everything else, lighting, etc. So the fact that one of the world's most famous explorers from Spain, who spent his life in South America, and you've got all of the authors there and original researchers from obviously, Tom Horn, L.A. Marzulli, Anselm P. Rambla. Tim Alberino was so on point with his tracking of Anselm. I don't believe there's anybody else and we watched two guys try and fail, then Tim stepped in and pretty much saved the day. Those of you who are listening to Anselm and watching the presentation know what I'm talking about. There's nobody else who knew the background better than Tim. Now, if it sounds like I'm bragging, I'm not. I'm giving him to who credit belongs and credit is due. We talked today. We did Sheila Zielinski's show today, earlier on the day. It's pre-recorded. But the point is that this could not have been orchestrated by man. It was physically impossible. We're told that Father Gamarra isn't even in the city, and there he is standing in the courtyard of the Cora Concha. We got him on film, and obviously he and Anselm embrace. And for everybody, you understand, Doug, the official position is the Shinkana, the tunnel systems, don't exist. You follow me?
Yep.
There is no such thing. And here you've got it on film. Only God could have arranged that. Meanwhile, the multi-$1,000 suit guys with the earpieces and the intelligence are doing everything they can to basically get us out of that place. So there is a marvelous history unfolding. And I want to share something. You mark my words, Peru is in the news. Every time we talk about it, we come on Hagmann's show. Ladies and gentlemen, it was true with Antarctica, the book Empire Beneath the Ice. It was true on Genetic Armageddon, which turned into Xenogenesis. It was true on Genesis 6 Giants. All the years, what God is doing, and I give him the praise for this, he's giving it to you, his people, if you will embrace it and take it to prayer before the world comes along to spin it in their direction. And I can tell you this, please consider live streaming the conference. There will never be another one. I've already asked to be at another one. Guess what my answer was? Nope.
Nope.
Yep. I've got to be about my Father's business. This one was brought together by the Lord. And when I say that, not that others aren't, I'm not comparing it to anything, but from start to finish, from prehistory, the history of the angelic civilization on the earth that led to all the legends, myths, blah, 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 that was wiped out due to their sin and the fallen angels. Then God recreates, and people, see, they want to fight over stuff, but they can't explain the stuff that's coming forth. That's why Jesus said, be not deceived. So people say, why is this important? Why didn't you just preach salvation? For 25 years, I have preached and will never cease to stop preaching the salvation that comes only through faith in Jesus Christ and the blood of the Lamb. And so, the point that I'm making is the people that are out there worldwide that listen to you, Doug. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are people that organized religion basically has turned off, but they're finding a new relationship with Jesus Christ. They're finding God's Word the Bible has answers, and they're seeing the counter, how the whole alien deception is unfolding in real time. So, when I hear, thank you for making it easy for me to come back to Jesus from a backslider, of which I am the chiefest, okay, and have been. I'm not now, thank the Lord, and I pray I don't again, but I did. But what I'm saying, when I hear that, I know this. The time of God sending his angels in the highways and byways is here. And when people in the outback in Australia or out in the middle of, the Amazon are hearing our show, and I don't even know how they get it when saying our show, the shows that we do with you or you do alone, that tells me God's doing it. How else can it be accounted for?
That's the
So
only
now
way.
let's take the questions.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, because that is the only way, folks.
And you're right, Steve. Just on Blog Talk Radio, on the stats page where they do the analytics, there's a map of the world, and it shows you how many countries have listened to this show. And I'd say it's over 90% of the countries.
Yeah.
There's only a few in Africa that have not heard the show. So it's amazing, the reach, the international reach that we have. And we'll get right into the questions. The first question I'm going to ask you, Steve, you mentioned Peru. Last week I saw a video, and I'm not sure who it was from, but the claim was that they found some kind of mummified alien in Peru.
Right, the three-fingered alien.
Yeah,
That's
the
right.
three
And
fingers.
I'm holding comments and reservations because here's what's going to happen, Doug, and this is something that everybody's got to be aware of. With the true information that's breaking, okay, there's going to be false mockumentaries to try and undercut those of us who are out there doing real research, okay? So that was in the news. So here's the point, Joe. Whether it's real or fake, the idea that the Peruvian, if you will, navel of the world now is predominant. I don't know if you saw it, but they just recreated on the London Daily Mail. I posted on my website a queen, a 1,700-year-old queen from Peru. They had her mummy. The reason everybody mummified their dead is because their fallen angel progenitors told them that they would be reconstituted. In essence, they'd be brought back from the dead, and the spirits, the spirits that once inhabited them will inhabit them again. So I don't know if that is true. They do have x-rays. I haven't had time because, like I said, I was down there when that news was breaking.
Right.
But whether it is or not is how do I say this, yet to be determined, but notice where it came from. Notice where they're linking it to. Notice where they're claiming it came from. Peru,
exactly. And you said a word there. Did you use that deliberately, mockumentaries?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, all right. I thought that was pretty cool. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay.
Thank you, Doug, for appreciating my word.
Mockumentary. I like that.
Steve, this question is from Elaine, and she says, how can the government offer Yellowstone Park as collateral? I understand that this is illegal.
Oh, a lot of things are.
Well, first of all, you've got to understand the United Nations, and the treaty. It's not illegal. Forgive me. Elaine, in all of our minds, it's not only illegal, it's treasonous. But that's the only way the Chinese would buy our debt to have collateral. And I believe that Stephen Sanford, Stephen, you're listening to this, please send me an email, and I'll post it immediately on the story. I know I probably posted earlier, but Elaine, everything, and remember this, Henry Kissinger's favorite statement, the illegal we do immediately, the unconstitutional takes a while, or that's a derivation of it. You can say, how can they do it? How can they do it? How can they do it? They do it. And Doug, that's
right.
That's the only answer I have for her.
And yeah, exactly right. It's because they can. And how can they do it? They just do it. So, all right. Anything else?
Okay. We have a question.
Nope.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
We have a question from a Connie, repercussions of supervolcano. Steve, what is your view of the repercussions for the rest of the world after a supervolcano eruption in Yellowstone?
Well, first of all, it's already postulated what that will be, but I think the better question, Connie, is to what degree are the massive simultaneous eruptions of volcanoes around the world affecting the jet stream, affecting the reflectivity of the Earth? In other words, what's it doing to the growing season? You can look at the Earth without summer every day on major news sources, and I know Mike Adams, Natural News, is doing a great job in covering this, but the food is disappearing. The animals are disappearing. The insects are disappearing. When you change the climate by so few degrees, and I'm not talking by man-made, I'm talking about volcanoes. You know, Doug, this is something that people don't understand. When the sulfur dioxide mixes with water, it forms H2SO4. H2SO4, everybody's basic chemistry should tell them, is sulfuric acid. The pH in the ocean is changing. Add in plutonium, and you have the ultimate cocktail. I'm telling you this, everybody doesn't have to worry about a supervolcano affecting the world. What they need to worry about is the massive volcanoes going off right now, and then asking the question, to what degree does weather modification and all the bouncing around or reverberating signals off the ionosphere, what are they doing to the tectonic plates? What is weather doing, where obviously God created everything in a beautiful balance? Now, what happens when you've got massive rainstorms in some areas that are lubricating the plates? You've got volcanism going off and affecting the specific upper latitudes. So here's the thing. You can look at climate and history, and I'm not a climate denier. Somebody says, do you believe man is behind climate change? I said, absolutely. Weather manipulation, geoengineering, Dane Wigington, Chemtrail Planet, exotic chemtrails. There's some sites out there that document it every single day. And so do I believe it? It's not because cows belch. It's not because politicians fart every time they open their mouth. It's because of the cause and effect of men making war on the environment. And people who are Christians had better suck this one up. God says he will destroy those who destroy the earth. What kind of a loving God would say that? The one who created it to be beautiful and who is at war with those who seek to destroy it. So that's my answer on that. The last thing is a supervolcano. The question that needs to be asked, Doug, you and I have operated on the principle of this. People that we interview, you as an investigator, me as a researcher, it's not what they volunteer, but they will answer a question if you ask it in the right way. Is that not a correct investigative procedure?
Absolutely. And sometimes if you ask, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Absolutely. If you ask it in the proper fashion, yeah.
Now, that's not a dismissal answer. That's the real answer to a question. You know, it's. Can I say this again? I'm hoping, and tell me, Joe and Doug, am I communicating effectively? Because you're talking about massive volcanoes, some of the biggest volcanoes in the world. Obviously, look to the west, to the Kamchatka Peninsula, and they're having huge eruptions. Look to even the Hawaiian Islands. Look to Indonesia. Look to South America. Look to Latin America. It should come as a real surprise that there's so many volcanoes coming active at once. I remember, and Hawk told me, you know, I talked to Hawk, and I got to call Hawk to find out when I said stuff or get reminded from you, you know. The bottom line is that one of the very first things, now listen, I'm giving God the glory for this. I couldn't have known this. Actually, probably at the time I said it, that probably wasn't, you know, the thing I was worried about at the time. But I did state, and I was on KHNC in Johnstown, Colorado. Maybe Randy Yarborough and others who listen to me there heard me say it, but I said, you'll know we're in the very end times, in the beginning of the tribulation, when all the volcanoes of major importance go off at the same time. I think I said all the major volcanoes go off at the same time. Now, I didn't talk about supervolcanoes, and for the record, there have been no supervolcanoes going off in our history. We had Mount Pinatubo, and we had, Mount St. Helens. We've had some major volcanic eruptions, and for the record, in order for a volcano to erupt, there are long-period episodic quakes, and long period doesn't mean in 2 weeks or 1 week you had 840. You have to have harmonic tremors. A guy by the name of Bernard Chouet, Chouet, for the U.S. Geological Service, basically could give a heads up on Pinatubo, in the Philippines, because he identified harmonic tremors as being precedent to volcanic activity. I'll tell you what's going to blow everybody's mind is when Cascadia, in other words, the Cascade region from Mount St. Helens, obviously Rainier, which is now picking up a lot of tectonic activity, and all the way down to Shasta, start to go active and start to cause people to, let's just say this, maybe consider moving off the West Coast. But unfortunately, most won't.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance, of course, it can't happen here. It's not going to happen here. We got all that.
We got
Yeah,
a
go
quick
ahead.
question from Javier. Steve, why won't they build thermal power plants in Yellowstone?
Because they're worried. That's a good question. By the way, the U.S. won't. The Chinese have already got plans for it. Without going into detail, how did I get in a lot of trouble? Let's just say this. That is a plan to do for the Chinese, but the reason that it won't be done in Yellowstone under our, at least, cover ownership is because it would interrupt the hydrology and all of the features of the park. In other words, the park's features, especially the thermophile bacteria, are more of an asset than the power, because what is the hottest subject in the world right now? Pun intended. It's not it's not basically volcanoes. It's the thermophile bacteria that exist. And also, they're tying in with Mars. Let me share this. You cannot go to any place on the earth beyond Yellowstone Park. You can go to Iceland and some of the places, other places that have geothermal hot springs. But Yellowstone is like, if you will, a microcosm of the universe. So everybody who believes, and I don't, in evolution is going there to see what type of life could exist. You're going to see it in the Martian play out. Doug, you remember it was on your show. I said, after Antarctica, I said, now you watch. The headlines will fill with news about Mars. You remember that?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, we should pull that broadcast back out and put it in rotation, because that was fascinating, and it's happening.
Yep, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And now, again, when Tim and I were on, Timothy Alvarino, talking about it, what we're going to reveal, let me share this. You know me, I want to give the bottom line at the beginning and work backwards. I can't on this because I've got to honor. But I will say something. One of the oldest prophecies that predates the Inca about the condor and the eagle is being fulfilled. I will not tell anybody what it is prior to that unless you get it. And then I'll tell you, you see God on it, because it's not some obscure South American, Incan, blood-sacrificing, human-eating, flesh-eating, murderous, creatures inheriting those habits from fallen angels. It's way more than that, because the secrets of the Andes, please, follow my clues. They're on my front page. The latest 2 stories I put up on Machu Picchu. Go to the photo of the day. I'm giving you clues. I'm making you follow, not yellow brick road, not a rabbit hole, but I'm going to allow you to lead, how do I say this, not allow, I'm going to help you to come to the most marvelous and startling revelation and how this is going to tie into the greatest deception in the history of mankind.
And I think I'm getting the way you've written those up. I think I'm getting it, and it's a tremendous maneuver. It's eloquent.
Yeah, it's not even a maneuver. I felt in my spirit, okay? And someone says, yeah, God doesn't talk to people. Yes, he does. My sheep hear my voice, and the voice of another will they not obey. That's the word of God. The problem with people who are claimants to Christianity, they don't believe God said what he means and means what he says.
Isn't that right? Boy, we see that happen all the time. All right. I think we can do a couple more here and you can move on. Joe, if you got another one right handy.
There's this one. It's about North Korea and the ICBM.
I don't know how. Yeah, Steve, do you want to weigh in on geopolitics?
Yeah, I want to deal with that, and whoever is sending that, I want to share this. Again, kudos to Hal Turner, but I bounce stuff off that he writes. Before I put up a story of his, I get independent verification. By the way, he's a very bright man. I've talked to him on the phone. He was up front with me. He said I was an FBI informer. I developed a lot of different relationships. So he's not trying to hide his past, okay? And again, I find him to be, now listen, this is not an endorsement of his former behavior. It's not an endorsement of who he may or may not be working for. But I'll tell you one thing, I find him to be a very bright man. Now, saying that, I'm aware that I have to trust no one at this point in my life. I can only look for verification, and I I will do my best to vet everything. And I told Hal this on the phone, and he said, Steve, I know how much hell you get whenever these were his words, you get when you link to my stuff. I said, Hal, when you got good stuff and you lead the pack and I can verify it, I'm going to put it up there. And if people don't like it, tough. They can go, eat whatever, genetically altered fruit.
Well, Steve, real quick, it's like this in an investigation. Sometimes you can interview a minister, and other times you have to interview a gang member. All right, the information is the information that they give you. Now, obviously, you can't pick your witnesses. It's simple as that. You go where the information is, and I think you make your point on that. But what about North Korea, there, brother?
Okay, I'm going right now to. Thanks for bringing me back on. It's critical. I believe that God is spelling it out for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. I'm going to read this word for word. Hal's headline was, "We are in big, big trouble." I sent this story before I linked to it to a friend of mine. My friend, and this is not flattery, is so bright that he was handpicked by the guy who set up Majestic, Dr. Teller, of the hydrogen bomb fame. Majestic 12, you don't know what it is, go look it up. I don't have time to go into it. He said this, "I concur, although some ignorant shills are saying it wasn't an ICBM because it came down only 600 miles away. Actually, it did go even higher in space, launched and controlled to be an almost up and down flight so as to not appear a long distance at the time. If it had been an angled flight, it would have been determined as a threat and response would have occurred. If the U.S. or Russia or China does a test, they alert the others to know that as such and the determined landing zone. That avoids a nuclear response due to an unknown threat. The NORKs, N-O-R-K-S, that stands for North Koreans, were smart to not place on a path that would have caused a response. The height it attained did show that the North Koreans now have the capability to launch a MIRV, multiple targeted reentry vehicle, independent reentry vehicle. In other words, if you got so many warheads, they can all go in different directions and hit different targets. He said, now the NORKs are fully recognized as nuclear power with delivery capability. Just more trouble for the world, hurtling towards destruction. And then he signs off, and my brother in Jesus, thank you. He says, Jesus is Lord. He never loses track of this. And again, what I find, Doug, it's fascinating that this man has had more attempts on his life, and he's alive. We prayed for him over the years. His wife has had more attempts on her life. They poisoned his air conditioning. They break into his house. They deny him VA benefits. They do everything in their power to try and kill him, and yet God keeps him alive. So thank you, people of God, who understand the calling of God to warn the people of God. For surely the Lord God does nothing except will do nothing except he reveals his secrets to his servants, the prophets. Saying that, I am not ever, and nor will I ever claim to be a prophet. I never have. What I'm saying is the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And with the hatred that is exhibited towards the name of Jesus, may God grant all of us boldness to testify of his holy son, Jesus, because there is redemption and salvation, no other name. And if that infuriates people and causes them to wet their britches in a hissy fit, or they have to go take a double hit of Prozac or LSD, so be it.
Very well said, Steve.
You kind of left us speechless there. You're right. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Got a question for you, Steve. It's about North Korea and the missile launch. Can you talk about the ramifications of the most recent missile accomplishment by North Korea? What exactly does it mean, and how close to a real-life threatening situation are we in pertaining to North Korea?
In the context of all-out war. I mean, yeah, how close are we to that?
Well, first of all, you know this. Secretary of State Tillerson has called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. President Trump knows what's at stake. The question is North Korea acting on their own or as a proxy? My answer to that is it's obvious they're a proxy. Someone. It could be Pakistan, China. I don't think it's Russia at this point, simply because I see that Russia's got its hands full with everything that it's basing, its foreign policy on right now, including the U.S., including the people that want World War III. And people should understand one thing. World War III will be initiated at some point by the globalists, by the elitists, by the Illuminati to bring about the rise of Antichrist. So, given that, the idea is simply this. The ramifications are we have to do something. And I'm calling, now look, I know who listens to this show. I'm calling on you 3-letter guys and 4-letter agencies, and I'm not using a swear word when I say that because there are 4-letter agencies to use the secret stuff you've got. You don't have to resort to, what I would call primitive nuclear weapons. Doug, I was told by a 4-star general 3 of them. And this is, and I will stand before God to give account for what I'm saying. So I take what I'm saying serious, is that they have stuff now that makes atom bombs look like Little League. And, if I can basically make that statement, and these are guys in spec ops, and they're so ultra black, and I can't even go into that because forgive me, but people don't believe the basic stuff. If they're going to harass, what, because I live in Yellowstone, I photographed it, and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, they're not going to believe me about that. But here's the deal. I could care less. I can stand before God and say, Lord, nothing you told me to warn them of have I failed to warn them of.
And there it is, and thank you, and I think
that's the bottom line.
That's right, exactly. Mission accomplished in a sense, or mission being accomplished, even better.
Yeah, I would say mission in the process.
Exactly. Now, Steve, let me ask you a question, because this is on my mind. This weekend, looking at North Korea as Joe was, and other things. What are we looking maybe? The threat potential here, EMP or EMP or nuclear war. What are you, in your mind, Steve Quayle's mind, based on your analysis, what are you more concerned with, domestically and then globally?
I believe that domestically, the EMP threat, shipping containers off the coast, pre-positioned shipping containers, I think that Kim Jong-un is going to basically keep everybody occupied with intercontinental ballistic missiles, etc., and the real threat will come from the orchestrated, if you will, ganging up of pre-positioned assets in this country. And it may be both. I don't even think, Doug, it's either or, but the idea of look at how panicked the world was and these cyber threats and attacks, and Chase Manhattan was down in the last couple days. I mean, it's becoming more and more obvious that the electronic dependency we all have on control systems through the internet or through computers that have already been breached. By the way, there is not a database that has not been breached. None. Nada. None.
And that's damn frightening when people understand exactly what that means. The electronic grid, the secure, all of the information, we're screwed. That's what it means. We're screwed.
Yeah, and that's the deal, okay? And here's the thing. God's people perish without knowledge. So what I want to share, Doug, too, because, before David comes on, is the fact that we're going to see, okay, the majority of what calls itself Christendom embrace transhumanism. Tom Horn and I have already been pointed out by a theology school of the leaders of the transhumanist movement. Well, good. Move over John Connor, because I hate the Terminator technology that's there, okay? And trust me, I'm not coming naked through any portals that I know of. So if you've seen the Terminator movie, that was my attempt at humor. But the bottom line is that we are at a time where everything is in play, not just a linear play. Don't think that China and Russia are not gauging our response. Remember this, too, that the Korean Cannon launch followed us having a naval destroyer, a missile cruiser, in the area of China's, artificial island. So they consider that, whether we consider it or not, they consider that their territory.
Yes, and they also consider it an act of aggression by the U.S.
Yes.
to have that
And
destroyed.
by the way, I just posted on the top of my website, stevequail.com, I reposted again the All News Pipeline. Insider warns of potential devastation ahead for West Coast while mainstream media froths at the mouth over Yellowstone. I love his headline. USGS says of Yellowstone there's nothing to worry about. Well, in this case, that truly isn't. Meanwhile, FEMA prepares for West Coast chaos and martial law. The guy that I'm quoting, actually Stefan quotes it, he said this: Steve, I want to discuss the coming big one, or 9.0 to 10 earthquake that's supposed to happen in California across the West Coast. The government response, of which he's a member of, will be complicated for this, but it would all be run by FEMA. We were told by a recent meeting, which, by the way, happened a couple weeks ago, that an estimated 3 to 10 million people will die during and after the earthquake. Now, am I saying that to scare people? Let me say this. Hell no, heaven yes. Hell no, heaven yes. Hell no, heaven yes. Choose rightly. Hell no, heaven yes. Doug, 4 times. I'm trying to obviously illustrate the point.
Done very well. Yeah. All right. We have another question. Joe's got this with respect to...
Yeah, the question...
I love that, by the way.
The question's from Melanie, and she says, Mr. Quail, first, thank you for your continued efforts to try to get individuals to understand the serious times ahead. Then she says, do you think the Yellowstone is a diversion, as this happens all the time, to divert us from knowing or finding out other things that they have been doing while keeping us distracted?
And I have Peter over here asking if the same thing, North Korea, is a diversion from the Middle East, as Yellowstone might be. Go ahead.
Yellowstone, a total diversion, North Korea not, okay? And the reason being is that North Korea is obviously making its statement, and I think that if people understand what I mean by proxy, when you've got Pakistan and Dr. Khan, K-H-A-N, look it up, the nuclear weapons proliferation. By the way, Doug, I found my old manuscript, and maybe I should bring it out again because I guess people don't understand nuclear weapons, but it was called Lucifer's Luggage, Suitcase Nukes in America. And I never brought it to publication. It was written, 15 years ago?
Yeah, it was.
So maybe a long time ago.
I vote yes. In fact, everyone call Steve's office tomorrow at 10 o'clock Mountain Time in the morning.
No, just have him email me. Yeah, please don't call.
No, I'm kidding.
Here's the thing I want people to understand, okay? The latest book that Tom Horn and I did, Cloud Eaters, unearthing the lost world of Cloud Eaters. The History Channel is doing a production. Tom's going to be in it, and so is good night, Cliff Mahooty, who appears on the 3rd installment of the Holocaust of Giants. And let me share this with everybody. If God asks you or, you want to get involved with us in a big way, I'm not asking for donations, but it's somebody who wants to step up to the pump and get involved with history. Our 4th installment of the whole True Legend series is already in not only pre-production, but advanced scouts halfway around the world, and that's all I'm going to say. And I'll tell you this, they're not chasing bones, they're chasing them. And I'll let you figure out who the them is. They're not, lying in graves or covered up bones in the Smithsonian. The bottom line is, so please pray, and I'm serious, Doug, this is I would ask every intercessor and prayer warrior out there to pray for the True Legends Advance team, because these guys are really, really in Hell's Kitchen, and I don't mean a TV show, and I don't mean a geographical location in New York. They are truly in there. They're men of faith. They're men who have basically God has kept alive through some of the most adverse conditions. One of the guy, basically, he told me he's eating a typical meal this sounds like Tim Alvarino. They're eating grubs, they're eating eel, and they're eating something that's similar to a rat.
Oh, man.
Yum, huh?
Yeah.
And these guys are, listen, when I got guys here, can I tell you what really infuriates me? These men are raised up by God. These men came to me and said, God put it on our heart. Tim and I were talking and praying and saying, Lord, where do you want us to go next? And we had an idea where we wanted to go. And I get contacted from these guys, and quite candidly, it was one of those answers to God. And he's saying, look to me. And so, I'm really asking the intercessor to keep these guys covered, I got off the phone with a guy today, and he and I did not get along at all, who, basically told me that, I won't even go there. I don't even want to go there, okay? But just say this. If a rocket goes to terminal velocity in however many minutes, I hit it in 60 seconds, okay? Because of the arrogance, because, basically throwing a lot of money, but I didn't understand international banking, which I don't. I understand one thing, my calling, that God is my source, He's a supplier, and this is stuff that people are being won to Jesus all over. So, in essence, that's what I'm asking you to pray for, that God will absolutely protect our advanced team. And when you find out where they've been, and when you basically, the people at Branson are going to get a sneak peek at it, I'm telling you, there won't be a draw that won't chop, or a jaw that won't drop.
Yep.
I've never seen a chop that won't draw, or whatever it would be. But anyway, the thing is that seriously, and the deal is here's a great statement for everyone to put into their thinking cap. If you've got new relationships and they start out and the Lord's in it, it will flow. If immediately you have problems, it doesn't matter if it's a marriage, a spouse, someone you're dating, someone you've lived with, whatever, it's someone you're going to go into business with, the minute you have trouble, you can just say, and the Lord is not in this relationship. Early understandings lead to long-term relationships. That's how David and I, Langford, became such good friends. He called into a radio show I had in the old days, and I guess I adopted him on the spot and said, I now declare you the official pastor to the flock that listens to me. And someone said, well, who are you to do that? I said, somebody that knew that God's people needed a shepherd, and I wasn't it, but that I had just had one, Pastor David Langford, call in. And that's the story, ladies and gentlemen. God did it. And David's background and my background are very similar. Neither one of us want to boast in anything but the saving knowledge of Jesus. Now, look, somebody says, you talk about Jesus too much. My answer to that is, I don't talk about Jesus enough because I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Everything that God has done in my life has been based on the Word of God, the book of Genesis, to be accurate, the first couple chapters in Genesis, and then Genesis chapter 6. And the oldest lie in the book of Genesis, ye shall be as gods, ye shall not surely die, is what's being promised on the front of Drudge every day when the technocratic billionaires are looking for eternal life. And isn't it interesting? Robot sex. I remember when I brought that up. You say the word sex, Doug, and besides free, I think nothing gets the attention of the people. I mean, some of the revelations I'm going to bring to Branson, and since I was one of the guys that talked about it in Genetic Armageddon, Today's Technology, Tomorrow's Monsters, Xenogenesis is the absolute, has to be read. If you do not understand where genetic engineering, transhumanism, singularity, CRISPR technology, artificial life forms, everything that's going on, the teleportation of organic material, i.e. Star Trek's teleporters and stuff, then you're going to be overwhelmed. And the snowflakes, the Prozac-dipped binky generation is clueless. They're being groomed to be slaughtered, okay?
Exactly.
Slaughtered.
Exactly.
So anyway, let's go on if you got any more questions, because I'm running into.
Yeah, I just want to say this. Xenogenesis really puts in context, this is my personal opinion of Xenogenesis, puts in context what's happening today. You look at the headlines. And I'm going to say one other thing, too. This program as well. The Hagmann Report. We bring on a variety of guests. Next week, we're going to have Senator Tom Coburn on. And we're talking about some really interesting, some scary, some weird stuff tonight with Steve Quayle. However, yet next week, a week from today, we're going to have Senator Tom Coburn on. Now, how is that possible? Because all of this is relevant, especially when we talk about Jesus Christ. All of this is relevant in the larger picture. People, they've got blinders on, and by looking at Jesus and looking at the things through a biblical context, historical, biblical, spiritual context, we can see the bigger picture where all of this connects together. And Steve is a wonderful man of connecting the dots. Steve, I just want to say that, and thank you. And Xenogenesis is a incredible book to have. Joe, apparently you've got some. We have some additional questions there. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I think there's okay. Go ahead.
let's see.
Sorry about that, Steve. It was just we just had a system reset here. Well, while we're waiting for this to boot back up.
Well, here, let me say this, Doug, again. The reason I think that, and I know that I know, even if there is a limited attack or whatever, I know that Branson's going to happen, because one of the things that, and I think this is something that's not been said that needs to be said, both Henry Groover and David Langford have walked the walk that very few men walk. I flatter no man, but I can tell you this, I know of no men who have walked the walks they've walked. Doesn't mean there aren't others, I just don't know them. And David and Henry are going to be ministering, and we're going to have people there that are going to get breakthroughs, not because you laid your money on the TV, and I want you to know, you give me $7,000, God will give you 7,000 blessings, and oh, by the way, throw in your house too. No, it's because there is a time of impartation of the boldness and the empowering of God's Spirit to allow His people to stand in the evil in the evil day, having done everything to stand in Him. Be strong in the Lord and the power of His might. None of us. Can I tell you something? Some of this stuff we're into right now sends shivers down my spine, because I'm going, oh God, how will you prepare your people for this? And He said, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit. I said, then Lord, you're going to have to pour it out like Niagara Falls, because, Father, what I see, now I don't see everything, nor could I, but what the Lord has shown me troubles me, because His people have become apathetic, indifferent, and I get guys, when I talk about winning people to Jesus, you'd think I stepped on their manhood, okay, if they're men, and I'm getting a rise out of Jezebels. I got to tell you something, it seems like Jezebel reproduced herself, and they come into my email in droves. They don't get it. They just don't get it.
No, we see the same thing. Boy, we are on the same page, my brother.
We're probably on the same email list coming out of Cheyenne Mountain.
Probably, and I think a lot of these situations are AI bots. By the way, very interesting how in the chat rooms and in the social networking, how the AI bots or these spam bots, whatever the bots, how they work together, and it's interesting to watch. I have a question about chimeras. Reports of late, the drug runoff into the water systems, creating these.
Right, it's created pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Hawk just sent me an email the other day saying, Steve, you remember when you talked about this? I absolutely do. Because of birth control pills, one of the secondary, I'd say, negative impacts of that most people didn't understand was the estrogenation of males drinking water, okay? That's why you've got so many people that are men in their 20s being bald, sperm counts down. Somebody said, well, America's got the most illiterate sperm in the world. Well, not only that, but we don't have enough to get the job done. Infertility, population control has always been the offshoot of these things. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, these are supernatural entities. Abortion didn't come through mankind. It came to mankind through fallen angels. And you know, people say, I don't believe that. That's your problem. You don't believe. That's your problem. You don't receive. So the chimeras that are out there, here's the point, that when you've got ionizing radiation, i.e. Fukushima and leaky reactors all over the place, meeting with extreme electromagnetic pulses reverberating off the ionosphere, meeting with the chemical compositions that are in the water, the excreted pharmaceuticals, everything from Prozac to estrogen, you name it, it's in the water system. By the way, you don't filter for that stuff. There's very few. And I'm going to go on record. I remember saying this, Doug, and maybe this is a night of reflection for me, but I remember saying, the day will come when you will drink water that you only used to walk through after a rainstorm. Saying that, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to get, you cannot drink water now unless you basically have your well tested in rural areas, and some of that's more polluted and poisoned than city water, but you cannot drink water that is not filtered. The question is, does bottled water filter for that stuff? Guess what? If it's in plastic, no, because it's obviously a xenoestrogen. Look up, plasticizers and what they're doing. So everything is designed, and it's only by the grace of God. It's only by the marvelous creation of God's spectacular design that any of us are alive. But Jesus said if the days weren't shortened, there'd be no flesh left alive. So everybody, you've got to look. There are different sponsors. I've had the guys at EnerHealth. They sell water purifiers. I know, Doug, you have different people. Get them. If everybody listening to us tonight went to get water purifiers and filters, there's a difference, okay? The idea is simply this. Everything that's in existence would disappear in 24 hours. But people drag their feet. Who hasn't heard of the horrors of Flint, Michigan? But what most people don't understand, the more promiscuous a town is, and there are specific areas like that, and how about all of the AIDS drugs and everything that is going in? And it's not just from the that part of society. It's everything. Glyphosate. See, here's the thing. The Russians and Chinese proved years ago, and I remember when it was Baxter reports, when he put them out there, that, if you will, the Chinese and Russians both showed that by exposing organic material to different waveforms, that they could literally change, the reproductive outcome of those things. You follow me?
Yep,
in other words, if you beam a certain frequency at a turkey, and this is actually one of the things done by a Chinese guy, you could get the turkey to come out more like chickens. And you know what I would say about that? God knows we deal with enough turkeys, and there certainly are more chickens than turkeys.
Amen, my brother. I knew exactly where you're going with that. My brother, we have done it. You've taken us right up against. We're just shy of the top of the hour, but you've done it. You got any closing comments that you want to relay?
Really, I want everyone to go to my website, stevequayle.com, and for those of you that are interested in earth changes, go to my alerts. It's up. It's called Q Alerts, and read what the federal agent law enforcement guy wrote in those 2 links I posted concerning what they're being trained for. By the way, Yellowstone doesn't appear on their radar. They're talking about 3 to 10 million people dying. And then, please, those of you, I'm telling you, Branson will be a watershed event worldwide. So for those of you that can't come to the United States, that I advise against it, why come and spend all that money when you can basically stay in any country of the world and live stream if you've got internet access? So it's stevequayle.com, and the point, Doug, is simply this. They can go on, the Gen 6 conference page and sign up, and it's gen6conferences.com. gen6conferences.com. And I can tell you that I doubt, and I want to make this clear, what I see happening 1 year from September, I don't see that there will be another Gen 6 conference, because all of our efforts are going to be to turn out 2 simultaneous DVDs, and it's horrifically expensive. And again, if anybody would like to help in a big way and can, if it weren't for 2 people listening to Hagmann and Hagmann, God bless you, Cam and Jan, we wouldn't have a True Legends 2. So you know what I'm saying? And and they said God told them. And so, again, two people that listen to this show, followed by, praise God, Gary Haven, there are people that have stepped in to help us. And Doug, to put a film team around the world, let me just put this into perspective, that travel halfway around the world and enter the area, 5,000 apiece. So when you're sending 5 guys for 21 days and your film crew, you're burning through 150,000 in a 3-week film period. And it's a necessity, because if those of you who have seen the Holocaust of Giants know, we don't do anything halfway.
That's right, you don't. It's fantastic, well worth it. Steve, thank you so much. You've done it. You've taken us right to the end, my brother. God bless you. Hey, we're going to talk tomorrow, okay? All right.
Thank you. Yep, and bless David Langford. Everyone listen to him, because he'll be ministering at the Branson True Legends Conference.
That's right. Can't wait for that. All
And
right.
he's